Okay, so the next project in line here is a vintage industrial style kitchen island, and I'm going to make the top and the supporting leg structure from wood, and I'm going to use some hackberry. I went uptown to the sawmill and picked up some turning blanks. I've got some 24s and some 30s and 32s and so on. The top of the island will be made from the hackberry on edge, and there'll be also some wood for the feet. The rest of the island will be built using steel, and we'll walk through every little bit of steps as I go along here, and kind of show you what's going on as I go. So I think I'm going to go ahead and draw up some ideas, and we'll go from there. Okay, hey, day 2. So here's a bunch of hackberry. Now what I've done here is I've taken the raw material and squared that up, trued it up, got about 2 7/8 by, well, some vary, but 2 7/8 by 2 3/4 blanks out of it. Now, it's not perfect. Some of them are narrower than others, which is fine because it's an industrial style. So the tabletop itself is going to be bolted together. I'm going to use some, well, let's see if I can illustrate this to you here. Basically, I'm going to take this washer, which isn't a washer yet, drill a hole in that guy. Then we'll inset this into the side at a diagonal, most likely, deep enough so that the end of the bolt that runs clear through the tabletop will be countersunk along with the washer and the nut into the edge of the tabletop. And there'll be 5 of those bolts that run clear through the table. That will ensure that it doesn't move, which it shouldn't anyway. It will be glued, but we'll get to that here after a bit. That's going to be a fun little project to get this thing all glued together. So that's the tabletop itself, and then I got to make some legs. I'll go ahead and cut those out of this couple blanks I chose out of what I had left. Get some good coloring in there, and let's see what else. I think that should do it. Let's get started. Okay, so I've got the legs cut, and well, most of them anyway, and the blanks are laid out. I went ahead and, let's see, laid out, if I can show you here. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so you can kind of see it. I laid out a line, laid out a pattern that I want to cut into the end here on the legs. Then I went ahead and made a template. So that all of them are the same, right? Just a chunk of scrap plywood. Then I took a blank that I had left over from the other section, and just to see if that's what I wanted to do, and it looks pretty good. So what this is, basically, you can see the template outline, and then I took a chamfering bit on the router and ran a chamfer around the corners here. There will be a chunk, about a 5-inch chunk that hangs down below here, where the foot will be the actual contact point on the ground. So anyway, let's cut a chunk. I'll show you how it works, the bandsaw. so most of the tabletop's ready to roll. I've got holes drilled through holes all the way through. We'll get some close-ups of this. It's getting heavy. Let's get you down here and take a look. 1 second. All right, so what I did here is I cut some 1/2-inch rod, which we're going to use, which I used, and then ground the corners off a little bit, as a center punch. As I went through here, each piece, I would just center punch those, and then drill the final hole for each chunk all the way through. So there's that. Eventually, of course, we will cut a hole in there to receive a washer, and yeah. So anyway, it's coming along pretty well. The next thing I'm going to do here is weld up these rods. Which right now, all I have is a solid. Whoop, going to roll for me. Is a solid chunk. Need threads on the end of that. I could thread it, however, I'm not going to fight myself. Since it's all going to be hidden, let's just cut a chunk off and weld them up. Then we'll slide the rods through the holes, figure out where the mortise needs to go for the washer and the nut, and bolt and glue this thing together. So I've drilled the holes. My battery died. All 3 of them are dead, so I went ahead and charged one up, but couldn't wait around, so I drilled the holes, the counter bores here, which are 1.5 inches, and I run about 3/4, 7/8 deep, something like that, which will then be mortised to receive the washer and the. Let me get this dropped. Oh, there she goes. Okay. And then there'll be a nut in there. Get you the general idea. I've got 1, 2, 7 more to go here. So, yeah, better get moving. Okay, hey, I glued up the tabletop, which is in the other room, and kind of mocked up the way it would sit, approximate height and stuff. So I need to build some steel legs now that go between the wooden legs and the tabletop. And they're 28 inches tall, and I'm going to go with some I-beam on top, probably at a slight angle. Not sure what the angle's yet, and then kind of play it by ear a little bit. I have the design in my mind, but I'm not sure if it'll look right. So let's just see what happens here. I'll just kind of, design as I go. Alright, so I've cut a bunch of pieces and started making brackets. Took me a while to design it all out, but let me grab some paperwork here. Basically, this is the wood section. I'm making a bracket on top, which will have the upright structure attached to it, and a bracket on the bottom, which will then be bolted through with nice square bolts. So that's what we're in the middle of doing. Ignore this bit. That's junk. Yeah, so I'll keep up welding and we'll just weld up some brackets. All right, folks, so day 65, it seems like. What I've been doing here recently is building the structural supports for the legs. And this is just a sample I made up of the legs, just to get my, shape. Anyway, this section will sit on top of the legs, which will extend on out beyond. This will clamp to the bottom, some bolts through there. And then on top of here, I'm not sure if you can see it, I have it marked out. Yep, so I've got it marked out for channel irons. So there'll be a couple channel irons that'll run up vertically, and those channels will be V-laced, like you might see on an old water tower or structural supports inside of a industrial building or whatever. So they'll be V-laced, which basically just means you zigzag between two uprights, and then opposite on the other side. But to make the V-lace template, I basically took a couple strips of wood and went ahead and drilled in holes where they should be, and took a little bit of messing around, but those are the uprights. And then I drilled and cut and drilled some little samples for the crosses, or whatever you want to call them, the supports, the ties. So it goes together like this. Let's see if I can show you here. Get you a little closer, maybe. Sorry about the movement. Can you see that? Yeah, I think so. Okay, so let's take a look. This will be riveted together. I'll dress the ends of these off. Let's see, that goes like that. One goes here. And you'll see, once you tie these together, you'll not be able to, well, once it's all riveted for sure, you won't be able to move that structure. And this is just one side. It'll be done the opposite way, coming up from here and zigzagging inside and out. On the other side here. Come on, go in the hole. There we go. So, ties it together. And once the other side, I don't have, oh yeah, I've got some here we can cut in. But it'll be a nice appearance as well. I can't really show you very well here, but you'll get the idea when we get there. So you'll see that on the opposite side then. And I think that'll be pretty cool, but I gotta finish drilling all these holes here, so I'm just stacking them and drilling them. Let's do that. On my super duper Harbor Freight drill press. I had to get a different drill press because the other one needs to be in the wood shop. Back and forth between the two sides doesn't work out. Drag stuff around. And you probably can't see what I'm doing. It really doesn't matter. So stacking them on up makes it a lot simpler. You can have a template on top and drill through. I could drill through 10 at a time, but then I need a different clamp, and that's not something I wanted to mess with. That's terrible. Yeah. So anyway, you drill them all up. I got about 20 more to go. All right, we're all set up to rivet this together. What I've done here, I'll take this out quickly and I'll show you, hopefully without dropping everything, the spacers here. Well, that'll keep the rivet from falling out at least. So what I've done is I've taken a receiving block, I don't know what they call it, a buck I think, and basically I've drilled and then reamed out to a relatively round shape a divot for the top of the rivet. And that's funny. Anyway, and then I've taken a chunk of old axle shaft out of a Ford pickup I'm rebuilding and cut a notch in it to go around the channel lip. And then on the other end, to set the head, I went ahead and did the same thing to that. It's a little smaller on purpose than the receiving end for the factory-made rivet head. So let's see what happens here. Not sure you can, yeah, you can kind of see it. I'm not going to set the camera differently. I grab my glove here. Kind of would like to have some help holding this stuff, but I think it'll be all right. Kinda. Probably regret that. Let's see, where's my hammer? Work, hammer. Everything is set on the outside. Over, under, over, under. Okay, let's try one. This guy. I've cut these rivets off. They're not quite as long as they were when I bought them, about a 1/4 inch or so. I'm just going to heat the end of that rivet a little bit so it'll move for me. I'm trying to get just the rivet if I can. It's hard, but the right way is you heat them before you drop them in the hole, but I don't have 7 hands, so we'll do it this way. I'm hot on my rivet. Drop it on. Probably going to take a couple heats for each of these guys. Oh, there I think it went. Well, maybe it won't take a couple heats. Does make a sooty mess though. Where's my... Oh! Wire brush. That's what I was looking for. Now I wouldn't want that rivet to necessarily hold me up while I was standing on top of a 50-story building, but I think it'll work for this table. Yep. I think so. Let's do another and see how it works out. Yeah. Difficult, but it's all hot here. Come on. Okay. Well, that's a little bit wonky. I need an extra thick chunk here. This goes down here. I don't know. Obviously, this is not going to be a reoccurring event. Otherwise, I'd make jigs and set this all up. All right, do one more. Looks like it works. I'll go ahead and rivet this one up and I'll show you in a minute. Okay, hey, look at that. Still hot, but get you a good picture of it here. Stiff, not going anywhere. And I'll do that same thing to the other side, but it'll crisscross this direction. And I think that'll be pretty cool looking. Okay, so I made some progress last night. Yeah, so there we go. It's welded up. And this morning I went ahead and put these rivets in, set these rivets on this cross piece. It looks pretty nice, I think. But the one thing I noticed, see if I can illustrate to you here. The one thing I noticed is it's got a little bit of movement to it. So it'll shake. So what I've done, I bought a turnbuckle, you know, the kind with a loop on both ends. And cut the loop off the left-hand thread because I didn't have any left-hand taps, or dies I should say. Went ahead and threaded a chunk of 3/8 rod. It requires lubricant and get it started square. And then I'm going to make some tabs here. With those tabs, if I can get down in here and show you, the tabs are going to fit right up against the channel iron and right down there. And they're going to allow me to tighten the whole structure against itself so that it can't wobble back and forth. Okay, so like we're looking at day 97, or so it seems. Well, we're done, basically. It's got a dry / cool. It's still warm. I put a let's see, to darken it, basically that's an oil blackened finish. Take the torch, heat it up real good, and then I use used motor oil, but it works pretty well. And oil blackened finish with then cleaned off, and you know, so it's not going to come off on your clothes or anything. And then wax it. Basically heat it up again, not as hot, a couple 100 degrees maybe, and wax that thing down with beeswax. I mean, just a chunk of beeswax. This used to be all cute. It said beeswax right on there, but it doesn't anymore. That's the wax. So let's see what else. Oh, in the other room. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna take a look at the top here. Let's see. So yeah, that's it right there. It's got 3 coats, maybe do another one here yet, I'm not sure. 3 coats of water-based polyurethane on it, and here you can see the nice through bolts right there. They go literally they go all the way through. There's a bolt that runs clear through. And let's see, legs, right? So anyway, this project has taken a long time. Just because I think it's necessary at this point in my business. I'm keeping track of every hour I spend and the type of hour it is. I don't know if you can see that or not, but right there, I see if it's a design hour, it's like 20 bucks because I can't charge full rate for that. And then if it's the wood stuff, it's 35 because wood takes forever for me to get it done. And then the steel, I got to charge considerably more, primarily because my insurance is just ridiculous. It's like 10 times as high for the steel stuff, so compared to the wood. And yeah, so I'm like, what I say, $1,800. I got a little bit more time spent to put it together, but really, I think when we get it all done, it'll look. All right, there we are, all done. I think it turned out pretty cool. So it's 36 inches tall, which would be considered counter height. They make a stool for that. I probably will build something at some point. So it's counter height, you know, it's decent for preparing some food or whatever you want to do. A few details I don't know that I've talked about yet. I went ahead and through drilled those. There's actually a bolt that runs through that. And let's see what else. Turnbuckles. I think we pretty much covered the whole thing. Down below here, we've got square bolts like they would have used, you know, a long time ago. Square-headed bolts, I should say. And that's the gist of it. Let me know what you think, and we will keep building this type of stuff. Well, maybe not exactly like this, but something like it. Anyway, enough for now, and stay tuned.